In this video I plan to show you derivation of Faraday's law from basic principles that we've looked at previously, and then give you a definition of Faraday's law that you can use, a fundamental definition of Faraday's law that you can use in your calculations. Along the way there's a little conversation about flux versus flux density versus flux linkage, because there's three very similar terms that all mean different things, and it gets a little bit confusing at times, so I'm going to hopefully sort those confusions out. Right, so previously we've looked at particles moving in a magnetic field, and we said that the force on them was equal to BQV, and the direction of the force depends on the direction of the magnetic field and the sign of the charge, in other words, or the direction of the current. And we can use Fleming's left-hand rule to figure out the direction. So in this case the current is moving from left to right because it's a positive charge, and current flows in the direction of positive charge, and the magnetic field is going into the screen, and so the force on the charge will be in the upwards direction, and we'll get circular motion in the upwards direction. If we swap it out for a negative charge, then the current goes in the opposite direction and we get downwards force, and as I said, it's equal to BQV, which we talked about previously. If I capture the charges in a conductor, so the negative charges in conductors are free to move, and I move that conductor through a magnetic field, then the force on them is the same. Obviously they can't necessarily go in a circular path, but they can flow from one end of the wire to another, and we end up with a build-up of charges at one end and a lack of charge at the other end, which creates an induced EMF or a voltage. So we can derive the term for that voltage by looking at this here. So I've defined some terms. I've defined the distance that the wire moves as delta S. I'm moving it at constant velocity, so the forces on it must be balanced. If we add a conductor here, then there's a complete circuit, and the electrons will flow around there with a current flowing in this direction. And we know from previous lessons that the force on a wire carrying a current in a magnetic field is BIL, and it has to be opposite direction according to Lenz's law, because if it wasn't, then it would accelerate and increase its acceleration because the force would increase, and so on and so on. So the force has to oppose, the force due to the current has to oppose the force that created the motion, and if those two are balanced, then it will move at constant velocity v. Right, the length of the wire in the magnetic field I'm going to call L, and the induced EMF is epsilon. So let's see if we can derive the induced EMF in terms of the things we know on here then. Right, so we should know that EMF as a basic definition, or voltage as a basic definition, is the work done per charge that flows through that potential difference. And if I'm applying a force of F over a distance of delta S, then the work done is force times distance, so F delta S. So we get that the induced EMF is F delta S over charge. We also know that the force is BIL, so we have BIL delta S over Q, but we also know that Q equals IT. So if I substitute that in there, we get the induced EMF is equal to BIL delta S over IT, and of course the I's cancel out, so we end up with BL delta S over delta T. Okay, now there's two things we can see here. The first thing is we can see that delta S over delta T is my velocity, so we can say that the induced EMF is, for a single wire, is BLV, where B is the magnetic flux density or the field strength, L is the length of the wire in the magnetic field, and v is the velocity the wire is moving. We can also think about L times delta S as an area. So it's this area here. There's delta S, there's L. That's the area of the magnetic field that you've swept out or swept through this area here. So we can also say that epsilon is equal to BA over delta T. So the next thing we need to talk about is what we mean by flux versus flux density. So flux density, we've used that term to refer to magnetic field strength, which is measured in Tesla. And flux is really just flux density times the area. Now you can imagine flux to be, in effect, the number of field lines within a certain area, and the more field lines there are, the higher the flux density, so the higher the field strength. So I've got these two diagrams down here. The one on the left shows a high field strength or a high flux density, and we've got the same size of area in that field, and you can see there's a greater number of field lines in the same area, so the flux in this one is greater than the flux in this one. Okay, that's fairly easy to understand. However, if we change the area rather than the field strength or the flux density, now we've got a greater flux density or field strength over on the left hand side. We've got the same flux because there's a smaller area. So greater flux density, smaller area, in this example gives me the same flux as a lower flux density, greater area. So you can imagine flux can be imagined to be the number of field lines, and then flux density is the number of field lines per area, if you like. We measure flux in Webers, and that's equivalent to a Tesla meter squared. So that's not the whole story, because if I go back to this slide, the induced EMF was caused by only a single wire. If we have multiple wires in this loop and we looped it round, then the induced EMF will be added together, increasing the EMF, and so we have to account for that. So there's another term called flux linkage, which accounts for the fact that some conductors are looped in coils, and the flux linkage is just the flux multiplied by the number of coils, and remember the flux was the flux density times the area. Okay, so flux linkage is equal to n phi, or it's equal to BAN, where B is the flux density. Okay, so this is measured in Webers, not sure how you pronounce it. This is measured in Tesla, area obviously meter squared, n is just an integer number which gives us the number of turns on the coil. So we started out and we proved this. We then said that flux was equal to BA, so we got that. And then that kind of links us to Faraday's law, because if we've got multiple turns we have to add an n. And the negative sign, this comes from Lenz's law, because the induced EMF has to oppose the motion that created the EMF in the first place. So Faraday's law, and this is what you need to remember, this is the fundamental definition of induced EMF. And forget the equation for the moment, just think about this. The induced EMF is equal to the rate of change of flux linkage. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that because it's really important. The induced EMF is equal to the rate of change of flux linkage. So if you've got a changing flux or a changing flux linkage, if there's multiple coils, then there will be an induced EMF, and that the EMF is equal to how quickly that flux linkage changes. So if you know how long that change took, assuming it's happening at constant rate, then you can figure out the rate of change of flux and therefore the EMF. Right, I'm going to leave you with that. What we'll do in the next session is rotating coils and how that generates a sinusoidal EMF.